Welcome to one of my rambly videos. It's been a while since I've done one in this format. I generally try and save this for when I feel like I have something of substance to say, and I'm hoping I do here because I've been sober for over 1,000 days. It's been close to 3 years now, and I figured since my perspective has gotten an opportunity to mature a bit, it would be cool to refresh this because I made a video about it a couple years back. But there's just a lot that's changed between now and then, and I would like to do an update. But before I do that, I would just like to say, I am not an expert. I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring this out along with you. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am a 27-year-old who's just tried something, and I am reporting my findings. But in order to communicate the way I feel about this, I think the best way is to do it in 3 chapters. And chapter 1 is a quick story. My junior year of college, I was living in this great big blue house with a bunch of my closest friends. It was so much fun, a little bit too much fun. But if I had to summarize this whole chapter of my life in one way, I would say it was the point I slept the best. There is something about having a ton of responsibilities in the morning that for whatever reason just put me completely out. I never woke up before my alarm. It was so rare. So this one particular night was an anomaly because I woke up really late at night, kind of unexpectedly. And at this point, I was dealing with a lot of sleep paralysis. So this particular night, I just assumed I was having sleep paralysis. I didn't think I was really awake, but it felt a little bit different. And so I convinced myself to sort of sit up because I knew if I sat up, I could rule out sleep paralysis. And so I sat up a little bit, and then I realized I was actually waking up in the middle of the night. My eyes felt really heavy, and it took me a while to open them. And when I did, I looked at my clock, and it was 3 a.m. And something was weird, but I couldn't quite place it. And it took me a while to notice that my entire room was kind of lit up a bit. Like it was this orangish purple sort of warm hue just everywhere in the room. And I was super confused by it because it looked exactly how that room would look during sunrise or sunset, when the light just goes below the horizon and everything kind of lights up but sort of stays dark, if you know what I'm talking about. And I couldn't puzzle out what was happening. I was looking, I didn't have any night lights or anything. My laptop screen wasn't on. And so I'm looking around, and I look up over my shoulder, and kind of right above my bed off to the side a bit, I had a window. And outside the window, I could see that my neighbor right across the street from me, their house was completely engulfed in flames. I mean, like, if you've seen Oppenheimer yet, it's like the part where the bomb goes off. It was just an inferno of fire and flames, and it was like nothing I've ever seen. And so in this moment, I had 3 options. I could either, 1, call the fire department or the police or whatever. I could, 2, just stand there like a deer in the headlights and do nothing. Or I could, 3, run over and try and help. And before I tell you what of those 3 options I went with, I would like to describe to you how now, after 1,000 days, I view alcohol. I essentially see alcohol now as a fire in a house. And a fire in a house isn't always a bad thing. If you're able to keep it in the fireplace, it actually kind of is like the pros outweigh the cons. It's the centerpiece of good conversation. It gives you an opportunity to feel warm and fuzzy inside. It can be so awesome. And a huge part of my story was in the point when it was awesome. It was a positive thing for me. It helped me make friends. It helped me in all these different ways. But what happens is if it even gets kind of out of control, even a little bit, it becomes a really big problem really fast. And what that looked like for me wasn't super severe. I was never addicted to alcohol. I never had like a traditional alcohol problem. But it got out of control enough that it started to consume parts of my personality that I was never meant to. It got to the point where I couldn't drink anything at all without feeling sorrow. There was this undercurrent of sadness that kind of stayed with me. Even when I would wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, I would just feel shame. And I could see this fire essentially spreading through my house, and I knew it had to stop. I knew I had to do something about it, and so I put the fire out. Now, after all this time, what I realized is even though I put the fire out, there still was a ton of burn damage that I had to take care of. This sorrow didn't just go away when I stopped drinking. The self-esteem problems I had didn't go away. I had to put in a ridiculous amount of work to kind of overcome those things. But there's no way I could have done those renovations on my house if it was still burning down. So essentially, for me and in my experience and with my story, it was impossible for me to tackle these things that were these consistent problems that were holding me back from the person I wanted to be unless I just removed the fire from my house completely. Now, sometimes I get a little bit frustrated with other sober people because when they take the fire out of their house, and this isn't the majority, in fact, this is a super small minority of sober people, but when they take the fire out of their house, they still have all of this burn damage, and instead of addressing the burn damage, they just point at anyone else that has a fire in their house and they go, I'm better than you because I don't have a fire in my house and you do. But a lot of those people have their fires under control, and obviously you don't, and you have a lot of work to do to sort of repair the damage that's been done. And I would sort of advise that person to maybe put all of that energy that you have into judging other people and to addressing what's been lost in your house. And I've been this person. When I quit drinking, there was a whole chapter where I felt like I had some moral high ground on someone, which was completely hypocritical because there was so much damage that had been done that I hadn't even addressed. And so for chapter 3, I would like to talk about the aftermath. What did I do when I saw my neighbor's house burning down? Did I call the cops? Did I just stand there? Did I run over and try and help? And I look back on this as a big regret. But the honest to God truth is I just stood there. I just stood there and I watched. And I look back now and I just think, why didn't I do anything about it? I don't know what would have played out if I had called the cops or the fire department sooner. I don't know what would have played out if I went out and tried to yell and see if there was someone in there or whatever. I do know what happened, which was I just looked at it, and it probably took 5 or 10 minutes before I heard sirens come, and then the fire department had started putting it out and everything. But I don't know if I could have made that happen sooner. I don't know. And I look back and I have this weird sense of guilt that I just feel like I made the wrong decision there. And so, all that to say, sobriety is not the most fun thing to talk about. I think it would be easy for me not to. It's not the most fun thing to hear about. But I don't want to be the person that just stands there while someone is being consumed by this horrible thing, and I don't want to just watch. I want to be helpful. I want to call the fire department. I want to run over and do something about it. At the same time, I don't want to point at all the different houses on the block that have controlled fires in them and be like, I'm calling the cops. I'm calling the fire department. This needs to stop. I don't want to be either of those people. And these past 1,000 days have taught me that sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. It's not my job to go around saying, this person's fire is out of control and that person isn't, whatever. I feel like it is my job when I know that there are people out there who are completely engulfed in this thing to just tell you that there is a version of this on the other end that is so good. Quitting drinking was one of the best decisions I personally ever made for myself, and I stand by it. I don't know if I'll ever reintroduce it into my life or not. As it stands right now, I probably won't. But if this sounds like something that you're intrigued by, I would check out some of the actual resources I have below, because like I said at the beginning of all this, I don't have the answers. I'm just a kid that's tried something, and the outcome of it has been positive for me. For other people, it's not a one thing cures all. Things don't have to be black and white. Alcohol doesn't have to be universally bad or universally good. Things are so complicated, and I just feel lucky to be here. I feel lucky to have the opportunity to observe it as an outsider now. I feel lucky that I got control of it when I did, and I hope that you out there are doing well. I hope you're doing healthy, and if your neighbor's house is ever on fire, don't just stand there, because you'll regret it for years. That's all I have to say. That's my updated perspective on this stuff. So I don't know what else to say. Have a good one.